the facing to the front and then the upper collar to the under collar. All right, so we're going to start at the bottom of the facing. And remember this, the pattern is wonky. So in order to get a 2-inch hem, normally it would be cut shorter here. So it normally would look like this. So just make yours look like that, okay? And then we are going to start here right on the facing line. And this particular pattern is just straight across. You can, with yours, you can round it if you like. I like to just backstitch a little bit in that corner just to make sure it's secure. And then we are just attaching this. And I didn't put twill tape on, I just realized. So just perhaps one little glitch, but we'll do it after. It's all good. It goes right on the edge, and I'll do it right after I do this. But when you do it for your real jacket, you'll do it before you do this. Okay. And I'm making sure it lines up. Now this is the tricky part. So, well, not that run right there, that's just pivoting, you can all do that. But when you get to here, this is really important. You need to take your upper collar and you need to fold it all over so that it's way out of the way. And you can see it's clipped right here to the seam. And this one right here, you want to make sure it is also clipped right at the same spot. If it isn't, make sure it is. This one's not quite, so I'm just going to adjust it slightly. And you want to go like this and then spread that one over as well. So you're taking your upper collar, you're getting it out of the way, you've got that clipped, and you're getting this out of the way as well. So you are going to stitch right exactly to that corner. It's really important that you get exactly to that corner. Go no less and no more. So that when you look at it, oh, see, look, I went less. So you can see I went just a little bit less. So when the jacket gets put together, there would be a big hole there. It wouldn't fit. All right, so that's why it's important to go right to that corner. So if you find you're having a hard time doing that, then flip it over to the other side and pull everything out of the way. And then find your corner right there. Get everything out of the way. Find your corner. Put your needle in it and stitch down. And I find oftentimes that doing that helps students a little bit find the right corner. So then I go like this, and then the next thing you want to do is you want to go like this and make sure you actually got to that corner. It's hard to tell because I got so much thread there. But yes, I got right to that corner. Okay, so that's the important part right there. Now we're going to add some twill tape. The twill tape goes within the seam allowance, and it's going to go on the side of the jacket, not the facing, and it goes a little bit into the seam itself and most of it into the garment. We're stitching it so it's within the seam allowance. When you get to here, you're just going to pivot it, and then I'll show you how to trim that off. And then in hand tailoring, you have to stitch that down by hand on the other side. Because this is not hand tailoring, I'm not requiring that. It rarely comes up or makes a mess, so we're all good. You need to come all the way down. What this does is it provides stability and strength to the outer edge of the jacket. And then I'm going to come down to here and do the same thing, and I pivot it across to the edge of the facing. Then I'm going to do the same thing to the collar, the under collar. And then when I get to the corners, I'm going to take the corners and I clip them, and they want to overlap a little bit, but I don't really want that because it's a little bit too much. So I'm just going to take a little V out so it's mitered like that. And if you want, if you find that it's not lying very flat, you can hand stitch those together just a little bit. Okay. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to trim that off on the corners like that. Okay. And then we're going to add the twill tape to the upper collar, the under collar. I'm only going to do it from halfway because that's all we're doing, right? Always twill tape. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the exact same thing. It's part way into the seam allowance. So you can see it's about 1/8 of an inch into the seam allowance, and the rest is in the garment. If you do it the opposite, you're going to cut all of it away, and it's not going to do any good. And the same thing applies here. You get to the corner, you're just going to go like this, pull it aside. Stitch it down to here. Cut it off. And then, thank you, David. And then just get rid of that extra there. So you just make a little V cut and make it so it looks like it's mitered. Okay. And like I said, if you really want to, you can just do 2 or 3 stitches across to hold it in place. Because this is the under collar, I'm just going to do this. Ta-da, done. It's held in place, and you're not going to see that because there's already other stitching happening down there, and it would be the same. So you can do that if you like, right? But I don't recommend you do it on the other particularly. All right, so then we're going to put our upper collar onto the under collar. Now this is really important that you do it the right way. A lot of students will put it on upside down, and then they're wondering why it's looking weird. So if you look at your under collar, I'm going to lay it here. It does this. This is center back. You can see it kind of curves up a little bit and then curves down like this. This is the edge. This is the neck, right? Where it does this little weird curvy thing, that center back neck. So if you make a little note of that, then you'll be less likely to put it on wrong. So you grab your collar, and because this is the edge and this is the straight one is the edge, that's the one you put onto your upper collar. This one you leave hanging. Okay. You match up the center back seam right here in the middle of your double notch. And I'm just going to do half because I am. Okay. And we stitch at the 1/2 inch. It seems pretty straightforward. You're like, yeah, this is just putting a collar on. But we're going to get to that tricky part again, and that's the most important part because that's the first thing you see on any suit when you actually start looking at it, is that notch between the collar and the lapel. So if you look, I'm starting to pull all this stuff out of the way. Even before I pivot here, I'm going, what do I have? What's happening here? Oh yeah, that's what's happening. I actually caught something. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to go like this. I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to make sure I have everything out of the way, and I want to stitch right to that corner. So I'm going to get rid of some of this, make sure everything's all cleared up, that I find that corner, and then try my hardest to stitch right to it and no more, not further and not less. And then before I go any further, I'm going to go like this. So remember, I had all these threads. I should get rid of them. And I'm going to just open it up a bit and see if I made it to the corner. So if you look, see, didn't quite make it to that corner and didn't quite make it to that corner. So that means that then my jacket, once it gets sewn together, is going to have a big hole right here. All right? So this is why this is really important. And if you were to stitch too far, you would get this. You'd get a big tuck right here. So it's really important to stitch right to that corner and then right to that corner. Okay? Then after you have fixed that, I won't bore you with that, I'll fix it later, then you want to trim this. So the upper collar, you keep the same length, the seam allowance. The under collar, we're going to trim the hair canvas away, and then we're going to trim a bit of the undercollar away. So we're going to grade the seam allowance. We want the outside the same, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter. And then we're going to get rid of the corner. It's best to do it in about 2 or 3 angles, not just straight across, but go up and then across again. And then trim all of that hair canvas off. And don't trim the hair canvas and the undercollar at the same time. They should be trimmed just slightly separately, so that they are slightly different heights. And that, the way I put mine on, that just worked out nice. So that all 3 layers are slightly different levels, and we do this so that the collar will lie a little bit more flat. Okay. And then once you've done that, then we need to take care of this little corner right here. So you're like, oh, well, what's happening? We've got this looks good and this looks good. Well, mine doesn't yet, but it will. But then we've got this right here. So here's going to be our upper collar, like up, and here's going to be our facing. But we've got this thing floating right here. And what do we do with this? This gets stitched to here. So once you've made this corner perfect, then you're going to take this bit right here and you're going to stitch it together. So again, this is why you have to be so particular, and as you get here, you're going to want to tuck everything out of the way because you got all these seams, and because mine's not going to work right because my corners aren't quite right. But once you fixed it, then you go in there, and I'm making this one a little bit off as well so that you can see what happens. And then we have the 2 curves that are slightly opposite, so we'll go like that, and this is going to be a seam allowance, so you have to give yourself that 1/2 inch seam allowance at the end. And then if I were to open this up, and if these were all perfect, I would open it up. Oh, thank you. With the wooden point turner. Oh, bless you. Poking the corners, making sure you don't poke all the way through, but that you poke enough that they're nice and crisp and got this lovely corner. If you need to trim more, you trim more. And if they all were to line up, then when you open it up, you have this perfect little beautiful corner. Look how pretty. Better to have a little bit of a hole than to go too far, by the way. We can always fix the hole. Okay? Yeah.